The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real Podcast, because wrestling needs us.
King of Podcasts here with you. Thanks for joining me for another Wrestling is Real podcast. King of Podcast Wrestling Network, WrestlingIsReal.com. A lot to get into tonight. We're not going to waste a lot of time. First of all, we got to deal with WWE Backlash in Puerto Rico coming up this weekend. We have the earnings call that came up this week actually, because the first quarter of earnings for WWE actually bore some interesting information that came out when it comes to the media rights conversation, the Endeavor merger. All those things were laid out and discussed on the conference call. Plus, AEW getting a big shot of adrenaline because of the fact that AEW All In did a great job when it comes to getting themselves out there, taking the risk to go to London and Wembley Stadium to try to sell that out. Pre-sale tickets doing just like what the original All In did. 43,000 tickets sold and a 78,000 seat stadium. They're going to be able to get this thing sold out. It sounds like that they're earmarked to get a sellout in London for that weekend. That's going to be incredible. And that's great news for them and a real boost for them because of all the years they've actually put out good content. Now, maybe they're not getting as high ratings as once before, but that's a different story. But there's a lot going on right now. So, a number of things were going on. We'll talk first about that. Then, I'm going to continue to go along with what we talked about last week when it comes to the World Heavyweight title. WWE's World Heavyweight title. The idea that they think that, well, if we go ahead and just take this here and say, hey, it's like there's a big issue about seeing where Roman Reigns, no one's going to go after him, but at least Cody Rhodes will at least say there's a priority for him to still beat Roman Reigns and become undisputed Universal Champion. Because they want to go ahead and start discussing the World Heavyweight title without even going into that. Like, remember, Seth Rollins on Raw this Monday night talked about how Roman's being held back on Raw, which is why he can't go after Roman Reigns and the undisputed Universal title on SmackDown, right? There's the reason they're saying for that. But then besides all that, you got to say to yourself, well, then what else is next? Like, there's a lot there to be said that I haven't said enough about when it comes to that they never want to consider the fact that you're going to just put out a consolation prize belt, a secondary belt, second place. Does anybody want to be second place? Oh, this like at least you got there. If it wasn't for Roman Reigns, maybe you couldn't get on top. No, how about you beat the guy that has the championship after all? And it doesn't matter who it is. And the draft that happened this week is a non-factor. It's just not important. And for those that want to go ahead and discuss, my fellow podcast wrestling brethren, I know you're going into this and you're trying to think what's the instilling details of this. Listen, it's not like the NFL draft, okay? Just because it's held the same week as the NFL draft doesn't mean it's the same. I mean, have they talked about what they're going to do with the belts once they are switched over? Remember that wonderful debacle between Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair when they swapped belts? So they got to do that now with Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. Are we just going to do the same thing again? And look, maybe there's some things that could be said, some validity to some of the claims about some of the things being done on television that might not make any sense or being rushed or being changed on the fly. I get that part. But I still feel like there's somewhat of a control that Triple H has because the way the draft was presented sounded like something he would do. And the choices that were made sounds like those are his decisions. But it's still going to be Vince in the oversight role because he still gets to be able to go ahead and have a say because now that this Endeavor merger comes into play, the $9 billion valuation, all this comes in, he's tenured. All the past transgressions that he was being accused or could have been charged for, those go away. As far as I know, what are they going to do to him, man? No lawsuits can touch the man. Vince McMahon's Teflon. And now that he made his deal by getting himself back on the company to make sure to be part of the board of directors, so he can be part of this deal to get to Ari Emanuel to be able to make this possible. And he did it. And the company has no choice but to be grateful for that. In the corporate sense, maybe the wrestlers don't care about it much, but still. So this is what we have now. And everybody wants to be upset about it, but you know what? It doesn't make a difference to me one way or the other if it's here or not. Because it doesn't. The product is okay. They got their matches set up for Backlash this weekend. No doubt about it. Everything's all set. So we'll get into the stories that we have about all this. Also, Trinity Fatu, the former Naomi, finally spoke out on Busted Open and spoke about her time as she was going out and leaving along with Sasha Banks, now known as Mercedes Moné, when they left WWE last May. That would have been a month. It's actually been a year now. So that's where we're at this point. And that's what's going to matter. So we got all that coming up. We'll bring up the draft. We're going to talk about Backlash. We're going to talk about AEW All In and the setup now for AEW Double or Nothing at the end of the month. Now that they have the Pillars match set in play. Some good swerves around that they had tonight on Dynamite. But they did set up, ultimately, a fatal four-way match with the three Pillars going up against the champion MJF. Good. And they set it up fine. The way they set it up, the way they got here, no problem with that. And they still have a lot of intertwining pieces right now when it comes to the show because of MJF and his tryst with Sammy Guevara, because now there's going to be a bit of an issue with them, with Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, and Darby Allin. And all those four just don't have a good thing to say for each other. They're all kind of with a lot of animosity coming in, which is good. There will be no sides playing one or the other, except for what MJF and Sammy Guevara are set to do. However, they're going to play that story out. All right. So much to get into. Let's try to get into as much as we can and just knock it out, okay? So first off, the draft. I will not focus on the entire draft, but I will just take a few of the names that have been mentioned that were put on and just see what they came from it. So the full results I have in front of me. Well, we're picked on Raw. Okay, so Rhea Ripley is now on Raw. Austin Theory goes to SmackDown. Seth Rollins stays on Raw. Charlotte Flair stays on SmackDown. Raw maintains the undisputed tag team champions of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Usos now on SmackDown, which there was a rift that, okay, are the Bloodline going to be together on SmackDown or not? But that happened on Raw to give a little bit of tension, a little bit of suspense. Judgment Day stays on Raw. LWO stays on SmackDown. And when I look, okay, Shayna Baszler, Ronda Rousey now on Raw. Interesting. And the other names that they kept here, for the most part, it was like, okay, that was it from that side. And there were other picks that were made after Raw. I'm not going to care about those. And the ones that were picked on SmackDown, by the way, Brock Lesnar's a free agent. The SmackDown picks on SmackDown Friday night. So Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, Paul Heyman stay on SmackDown. Cody stays on Raw. Bianca Belair moves to SmackDown, which is a fine move. I think that's the right place to go with her. They just need to have some fresh competition for her. And are they going to keep her as champion on that side or not? Becky Lynch stays on Raw. Street Profits move to SmackDown as well to keep, by the way, the Olympic Village. So let's keep people together, right? So I saw that the female now, Samantha Irwin, moved over to Raw, took company Ricochet, who she's with. And then what was it? Okay, Bianca Belair moves along with the Street Profits over to SmackDown to keep those together. Right, Bianca and Montez. They did all that stuff, right? And then other than that, Imperium moves to Raw. That's interesting. Edge goes to SmackDown. Matt Riddle is now on Raw. Bobby Lashley on SmackDown. So they put some more SmackDown stars over. So the draft really just made it where, the Fox brand gets a little more, they just a little refreshing. And then I guess some stores, I don't know if this is a bit of a jump for Imperium to move to Raw. I don't know. Shinsuke Nakamura on Raw. Like, it's some stars they move over. Probably makes sense for them to do that. It's the mid card. They really wanted to do a little bit of spring cleaning, a little bit of adjustment, a tweak to make things a little more interesting. Indy Hartwell, who was NXT Women's Champion before she vacated the belt on Raw. So now they're going to have the whole Way crew now over on Raw? Is that what the whole deal is? Whatever. And, it doesn't matter. The Miz stays on Raw. OC's on SmackDown now. Okay, there's a difference. But there's nothing much that really says anything here. Doesn't make a difference. Whatever. Not newsworthy. Not newsworthy. What they're going to have to untangle now is they're going to have to go ahead and figure out the championships on which side. The IC title now moves over to Raw. The US title moves over to SmackDown. Okay. Not a big switch up over that way. But then you go ahead and have... well, actually, the other thing, too, is you see more of the trios moving over to Raw, right? Because let me just look in here. If I'm right, like when it comes to Raw, they need to go and have more stars. Yeah, more of the trios went over that way. Let me just put it to you like this. For the 3-hour show, you get more of the trios on that side to fill up more of the time. So that's one of the reasons why they would have that. So to see, LWO moved over to SmackDown, there's more of a push to them. New Day now on Raw. So Brawling Brutes stay on SmackDown. But then you look in, Judgment Day stays, like I said. And then we Pretty Deadly with the SmackDown. Oh, boy. See, I don't like that move at all either. And then on the other side of the groups, whatever. It's like what it is. OC now on SmackDown. Like, they did switch trios back and forth. A couple of them. That's pretty much it. Like, I really is nothing to talk about on this. So I'm going to just move on. Nothing to talk about on this. Moving along. Let's get into the earnings call. Fightful has a report on this, and we have other places to talk about it, but let's get into that real quick. And also to take a story from Reuters that also brought it up as well. Bring up a few things like that. So Reuters has their story. Let me go and pull that up as well. And they did not include what was going on with WrestleMania. I think the WrestleMania figures were not included into the revenue because it was a delay on the numbers that happened at SoFi Stadium with WrestleMania 39. So they reported a drop in first quarter revenue and operating income, but there was a delay, but they still maintained their full year earnings forecast. So the company still continues to target record revenue, and their adjusted operating income before depreciation and amortization, OIBDA, is up 2%. And the revenue right now for the first quarter of the year dropped 11%. But that's because they did not. Revenue came because of the large-scale international event. But this year is expected to occur in the second quarter. So now let's get into what was said in the earnings call itself. We always want to hear what some of the people are saying in the call. Nick Khan says WrestleMania 39 merchandise sales were $7 million. That breaks last year's record of $5.2 million. Wow. Ticket sales up 41%. Average attendance was up to 750. So this is a Triple H effect where having some interest in the mid-card, interest in a lot of things going on with the show weekly. The storyline is getting better. That helped a lot when it comes to the house shows. And house shows actually got more interesting. That's something that Vince didn't probably care too much about. But Triple H, what he's done, has affected house shows. Frank Riddick, the chief revenue officer, right, says there will be cost increases in the second quarter because they will have Elimination Chamber. They will have Night of Champions. That'll be happening in Saudi Arabia. There's going to be that kind of deal going on. There's productive conversations so far when it comes to the media rights with Fox and NBCUniversal. Nick Khan notes that exclusive media rights negotiation windows with their current media partners in the United States last around a month. So negotiations are going on right now. Everything sounds good with that. Nick says they're going to work on renewal with Sony in India after the merger of Sony with Z. So the Indian audience is still going to be very prominent for WWE going forward. Now, one question that's always very interesting is that on my Broadcasters podcast, I will be talking about this extensively tomorrow, the writer's strike with the Writers Guild of America up against the Association of Motion Picture and Television Producers. So check out the Broadcasters podcast. You hear about that. You hear about, Hollywood's going to shut down. Movies, TV shows are all going to take a break. Yes. And if you want to know the whole lowdown on it, listen to my program. Look for it, broadcasterspodcast.com. There's a link to it on this site, wrestlingisreal.com. You can find it there. But look for the show. Subscribe if you like. And listen to it. I'm doing a lot of good content over there. So, but the WWE and their superstars are not affected, and there will be no impact expected by the writer's strike. And there are UFC sponsors that WWE could be going after and trying to approach to work with them on projects or for advertising, but until the Endeavor merger is complete, Nick Khan says they're not going to be approaching any of the UFC sponsors. Triple H spoke about Endeavor that will help them grow internationally. There's no interest from anyone at UFC or Endeavor in getting involved in WWE creatively. And that's what they said about that. That was basically the whole point of the whole thing there. And like I said, the strike is not going to be affected by it. There's a little more about that coming off of Deadline.com that talked about it. Let me get what they also said that was going on. They explained that our writers are not members of the guild, no effect on us whatsoever, but we are supportive of the writers who are the members of the guild and their efforts. Hopefully a deal will be reached between them and the other side in short order. Yes, we all support the strike. We want it to be done. Let's move along with it. Now, when they talk about any changes that might happen from Endeavor because of the deal of the cultural fit of an independent family-owned company like WWE moving under a larger corporate umbrella. Well, if, whoever asked that question doesn't realize WWE's been run like a corporation. They're a publicly traded company before they got into this anyway. So, but Nick Khan had to go ahead and respond. He explains that, keep in mind, we've known these folks for a long time. They're not strangers to us. Their style is not strange to us. It's something that we give a full embrace to. And I can certainly represent emphatically to you on the creative. There's no one at Endeavor or UFC has any interest in trying to interfere with that any way whatsoever. Right. It's not broken. They're actually on an upswing right now in the company. House shows are up. Revenue's up. Like, there's a lot of good things going right. And that's not being affected by Vince McMahon. No, actually, Vince McMahon, in his role, has actually improved the situation for WWE. Remember, this guy now has just created a lifeline for WWE. They were never going to be worrying about anything ever again. They're going to be a permanent fixture in the lexicon of media and entertainment in the U.S. and the worldwide. Bottom line, they're not hurting for cash. They've been sold. 51% of interest will go to Endeavor come at the end of the year. They're all set. And WWE is also taking its live show to London, where it's open for business, keeping careful taps on India. And there's a lot more that can be said about what they said in the talks, but that's pretty much what was said all in all. Nothing more than that. So let's talk about Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes. Let's talk about the Universal title and the World Heavyweight title. Let's go into that again. So there was a report that came out about how Roman Reigns becoming unified champion wasn't originally part of WWE's plan. Right. And there was a story that got brought up about it, and I was going to bring it up. So here's what we got. I wanted to use this to explain myself from last week, but somebody over at thesportster.com did it for me. So when I tried to make my point as to why Roman Reigns ended up being champion because it was a mistake, well, this writer here decided to go ahead and support my theory. So he probably won't be defending his belt until Night of Champions at the earliest. We'll make 1,000 days as Universal Champion. if it hadn't been for a last-minute change of plans more than a year ago, it wouldn't have panned out this way. Exactly right. But that's a Vince McMahon thing. Do you understand? That's a Vince McMahon thing. So to see this come up like it doesn't surprise me at all. Because that's just how it works. This is the way they do things in this company. But this is a mistake that I said back when Triple H was going to take the reins over in July. I said this. They're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with the belt situation, because Roman Reigns, they never had an answer. They don't have a plan for this. They're just spreading it out. And by doing what they did with the World Heavyweight title last week, just made proof positive that they're not going to take that belt off of Roman Reigns anytime soon. And they have no plan, no contingency as to who's going to take him on next. Now, Fightful Select, via Comic Book, put out a new report that said a few months before, prior to Reigns beating Brock Lesnar for the WWE title so he could unify it with the Universal Championship, the Tribal Chief was supposed to defend the one belt he had at the time against Lesnar at day one, but tested positive for COVID-19 right before the show. Match was pulled. Lesnar was added to the event's title match instead. Remember, we heard that the day of. Lesnar would win the title that night. And then we had the Lesnar-Reigns title unification match at last year's WrestleMania. And it was unclear if Reigns and Lesnar would have faced off with the one title at WrestleMania if the latter had not won the WWE Championship on day one, or if Lesnar would have beaten Reigns on day one and ended the Universal title reign. But despite never trying to unify the titles, they've kept them on the same person for well over a year. There have been plans to split the titles on more than one occasion, but the plans have been too complex to pull the trigger on. Most notably, there was the idea to have Drew McIntyre beat Reigns for one of his titles at Clash at the Castle last year with Austin Theory, and the Money in the Bank playing in the decision somehow. Fightful noted plans for either McIntyre or Seth Rollins to be WWE champion going into WrestleMania 39 and defending the title against Cody Rhodes. More title split plans that never came to fruition, and that the company decided to introduce the new championship. And now we have Night of Champions instead of King and Queen of the Ring, which there's been no explanation of that either. So what is that supposed to tell you? No plan whatsoever. This is the biggest thing that I worry about with this company, is that the way they're making decisions at the top here. Now, I get it. This is where the storylines, where they've done so good with the Bloodline storyline. Listen, everything they included with Sami Zayn, excellent work. But where's your ending? Where's the final chapter? Okay? Where Roman Reigns, as the heel, must drop the belt eventually to a babyface. Cody Rhodes can still be that babyface, but they don't want to put him in there now. They wanted to put Brock Lesnar up in front. Plus, we're also in this cloudy area of reintroducing a World Heavyweight title. It's the Raw title. And I'm guessing Seth Rollins will probably win that belt first, too. Just saying. I mean, who else do you want to put right there at this moment? Do you want Cody Rhodes to win that belt? No. I would have preferred Cody go after Roman Reigns sometime after this match at Backlash. I don't know if they're going to do that or not. But I would like it where Cody still has a chance to, and keeps talking about the fact that he wants to go after Roman Reigns. But they haven't done that. They decided to stick to Cody and Brock, which is fine because of everything I've said before about this before, okay? That Cody was out in injury, and the time he could have been spending in feuds with Brock Lesnar or in feuds with other stars. He only had one feud leading into coming back from injury. And then he gets this match all of a sudden after the Royal Rumble win against Roman Reigns. But they can get the program going, but they didn't want to give a rematch. Instead, let's put Brock in the way. That's what they chose to do, which is fine. And until they do anything else, that's just what they're going to stick with. That's all they want. And Cody Rhodes, maybe he doesn't get to say this on television. At least I didn't see it on television. I'll admit I've been a little bit rusty on watching Raw every Monday night because it is tough to just sit there and watch like the whole time because the matches are very long. And I'm like, it's the part of Raw that even though it's much better than it has been, they're never going to fix that part of like making me stay glued in for 3 hours. It's just impossible. Maybe I'm just like everybody else with the short attention span, because I really am right now, badly. Story takes from Sports Rush. I'll take this here, that Cody Rhodes made the point. Now, he had an interview with Comic Book Nation, and he opened up on his loss to Roman Reigns in the main event, and addressed the aftermath. He says the goal, quote, is still the same for me. I came here wanting one thing. That doesn't mean other stories won't happen. That will also be finished. And doesn't mean there aren't other milestones. But the most important thing to me is still the championship that sits on Roman's shoulders. So he is going to insist that the pursuit continues to be the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. But it's got to be set on television. You have to establish that it still continues to be that on television, okay? There's a report from Give Me Sport and WrestleVotes that Triple H is open to the idea of Cody Rhodes getting another shot at Roman Reigns. The report says, I can say this, the rematch that's at the forefront of everybody's minds, Cody versus Roman, is very much on the table to main event in Philadelphia next year. Okay. Wait till WrestleMania next year? Sure. But you need to keep Cody on the right there for it. And you can't just wait until next year to give Roman an opponent. Roman has to have opponents. Who do you have? He's taken on everybody. Remember, he smashed everybody. What do you do next? I don't think anybody ever... That's where the company needs to come in. You just can't leave the SmackDown brand like it is and say, okay, what's next? Who do you have that's going to be legitimate or eligible to go ahead and go after? Because of the draft, nothing changed in the draft to make Roman Reigns have a new opponent. No. Of the two names that I thought would be eligible right now to go after Roman Reigns, that would be logical in storyline, would be first Cody Rhodes, second Seth Rollins. But neither one of them are on that brand. So are we going to just make them go after the World Heavyweight title? Like Seth, I can see that happening. And he deserves so. But then who else do you have? You remember when they tried to get Karrion Kross out there? A little bit of a teaser. It's interesting where two of the stars they had that they featured on the draft, you know, Shinsuke Nakamura, you know what? After everything that's gone on, I've never been happy with his run. His NXT run, sure. But his run in the main roster, no. I'm sure he's happy that he's working so well. He gets to live here in America and all, which is wonderful. But like, I mean, there have been some good matches he's had, of course. But nothing that really makes me happy that he moved over here and wasn't having the banger matches like at Wrestle Kingdoms like he would have every year. He doesn't have that. But I mean, he took the money. He took the career here, and I guess he's doing just fine. And as for Karrion Kross, I mean, whatever kind of momentum that he had is gone. I think they've dropped the ball on him. I don't know what they're going to do, but I think the Karrion Kross character, with the way it was built up, he's not going to do what he wants. I feel like Karrion Kross is the next Bray Wyatt. And by the way, where's Bray Wyatt? No Alexa Bliss to be heard of either. Like, there's other two names you also didn't hear about. It's like, what are you going to do with Roman Reigns? You have no contender for him. Is Money in the Bank, is that what it's going to be used for? I don't know, but we need to figure that out. Maybe that's what they're going to do. Maybe that's what they have to do. The Money in the Bank briefcase has to be cashed in on Roman Reigns. It can't be the World Heavyweight title, because the Night of Champions, they're already going to crown somebody. So you can't go into those two matches and then go those two things and say, okay, well, you're going to crown a World Heavyweight champion, but then by this point, you're going to have more things going on, right? Because Money in the Bank's in July, Night of Champions is at the end of May, and then what are you going to do? Like, that amount of time, you should set up where Money in the Bank is here, and then you got, the 4 or 5 weeks to SummerSlam, And then you set things up to where Roman Reigns' opponent is revealed as to whoever wins the Money in the Bank briefcase. I guess. I don't know what else you do. Because they have a plan in place for the World Heavyweight Champion. And they can set up a program after that. But what are they going to do after everything else? I don't know. I don't know. No plan whatsoever. All right. One more WWE thing I want to talk about. And then we're going to move along into AEW news. There's a lot of AEW news this week. Now, Trinity Fatu. She just debuted for Impact Wrestling. This is on the tapings after Revolution. And she was on Busted Open Radio. And she revealed that her debut will be on Impact Wrestling on Access TV, which will happen tomorrow night, or will probably already have happened by the time you listen to this. And she talked about, first of all, that this last year of my life has been life-changing in all the right ways. Mickie James noted that Trinity has been quiet since leaving the company, but she's been working a lot of outside projects. And Trinity says this about Impact. I chose and wanted to be at Impact Wrestling. The doors are open for me everywhere, literally everywhere. But I truly feel like Impact is the best choice for me at this point in my life right now with what I want to do. And to just be able to work with the talent there, I feel like is where I'll be happiest and most utilized and really get to grow in the ways that I feel like I need to get the right now on this wrestling journey. Had all this stuff ever happened, there's no way that I would have took that leap out, but the situation kind of forced me to figure it out. That's what I meant when I said everything was blessing in disguise, because I was really going through a lot. I felt very stagnant. I wasn't happy. Ultimately, I left that day because of the way I was talked to and handled. Everything just kind of broke me that day. It had nothing to do with anything else, anybody else. That was just it. I had to. To go through all the backlash and the negativity and lies and rumors, and then to be just feel lost. It broke me. The lowest I ever felt in my life. But going through that made me reset, face it head on, figure out how to learn from this experience and grow from it. Listen, God bless her. I hope she's really happy with what she's getting to do. And as you know me on this program, I love when somebody gets a chance to go and move along. Hey, listen, still has quite of a career in front of her. 35 years old. Okay, yeah. Her husband's working over on the other side. She had 13 years working as Naomi, NXT to the main roster. So her name is synonymous out there. And I'll tell you this. With everything that's going on, she's right. Talking about a company that does probably the best job, one of the best jobs in promoting and positioning women's wrestling. Impact Wrestling. It's not even a question. Like AEW does a pretty good job. They do what they can. AEW and WWE do the same thing when it comes to their women's divisions. Like they have a position for it. There's a bit of a priority to it. But Impact Wrestling, I love the way they handled the Knockouts division. It's just different. Look at how they did this past Revolution. You gave us the women's title, the Knockouts title at the main event. Damn good match, by the way. Damn good match. Deonna Purrazzo, Jordan Grace, another barn burner. And then I'll imagine, there's a lot of stars that, when you look at the roster over on Impact Wrestling for their division, they got a lot of names to work off of. They have a lot. Let's just look at the roster right now. Of the current Impact rosters they have at the moment, the current setup is, when I look at the names, Deonna Purrazzo is now your current Knockouts champion. You got Trinity could go up against Giselle Shaw. She can go up against, Jessica Havoc. She's got Jordan Grace. She's got Colin King, Killer Kelly, Masha Slamovich. There's some pretty good names on the main part of this Knockouts roster. Rosemary you could put in as well. You got Tasha Steelz that's still there. Taylor Wilde. Like, it's not a monster roster over there, but there are a number of names they have over there that are good at the moment. And Mickie James is still there as well when she gets back from injury. There's a lot. There's enough in that Knockouts division, plus others they can bring in that could do really well. So, got no problem with that there. There's enough going on, and nothing can always do to intertwine to bring in a lot that's going on with TNA, or with Impact Wrestling, right? I said TNA because that's what it says on the TV, but I don't on my screen. But either which way, they have some pretty good young wrestlers, and some that have been around independents that are quite prominent. So there's work that she can do. And there's no question that Trinity can move her way up into that Knockouts title position right now. They could instantly put her into that spot, and her and Deonna could rock and roll. And I think the other part, too, is where Trinity's going to get to be able the chance to evolve her character, which she's needed to do that for a long time. The Glow stuff was fine, but it was more for the house shows than anything else. And they gave her the SmackDown title, right? It's like, And she lost. She had to drop it. That's right, because she got injured. Look, she's done everything that had to be done in that roster. And for her to get this fresh start and a company that's that always exemplifies and always does good for the Knockouts, good for her. I'm happy she's going to be here. And, I'll check out tomorrow night and see how she does, how it all turns out. All right, let's move along now into AEW. So one of the first things that came up is now the fact that AEW is dropping. They already dropped Dark Elevation as of last week. Well, now AEW Dark is also going to go ahead and be gone. No more AEW Dark. No more AEW Dark Elevation. So like your WCW Saturday night feel to it, gone. So what's happening is that there's a new show they're going to be getting, which is Collision. And apparently the deal that's being now negotiated where Warner Brothers Discovery is definitely going to keep AEW on board. They are going to stay together, which is great news. Anybody think there was going to be like that? That was big. So here's what we got so far in the news. So AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation will now be dropped. It's according to Andrew Zarian, Matman Podcast. They're ended for the time being. And there's going to be a new Saturday show now. The AEW is making a new contract for it, which is AEW Collision, which is their fourth show now. So Dynamite, Rampage, All Access, and now Collision. And there's a new deal that certifies that AEW wrestling content will air exclusively on Warner Brothers Discovery. It does not include Tony Khan's second promotion, Ring of Honor. But it's worth noting that Bleacher Report Live is a Warner Brothers Discovery property. So Dark and Dark Elevation have both served as AEW developmental, showcasing non-contracted talent and shorter matches for a taped audience. But now there's the thought that the Dark and Dark Elevation type of programming will be on the Ring of Honor TV tapings. So Tony Khan already said that we got a great partnership with Warner Brothers Discovery. We got the rest of this year, next year. They've been really so good to us. And I feel not only was the original leadership so great to take on an unknown company, but then post-merger, the Discovery leadership has been so supportive. And we're getting opportunities now with the new management, even bigger than we have before, which is true. They've expanded programming as a result of what happened. I mean, that's pretty good. Now, I don't know what that means next for AEW, but the thing is, we know they're going to do a deal. We're going to learn more details about it soon enough. That'll be set up, and that'll go. And that's okay. But a new TV deal is expected to come up pretty soon. Fightful Select, Sean Ross Sapp also confirms Arian's report. We'll get a newer altered TV deal with Warner Brothers Discovery at some point this month in May. And there's not much more being said about it. So, no problem with Dark and Dark Elevation going away. Now I'm wondering if what is going to happen with the Battle of the Belts, if that's going to be something that will be continue to be going forward. I hope they drop that. I think they just can take that out and not really concern themselves. We just have to wait. The media deal will come in, but more importantly than anything else, listen, no matter what they're going to get with their programming, what they are getting for sure is AEW is staying around. The intellectual property is solid. Warner Bros. Discovery is definitely staying in with non-scripted programming. We heard about that. Even when we heard everything else when it comes to issues with Warner Bros. Discovery, once the merger came in place, that's all changed around. But there's a lot of things coming up right now for Warner Bros. Discovery, the parent, the people that are running the media rights deal now, broadcasting all AEW's content. There's that part that has to be considered. So we have to wait and see what happens when it comes to setting things up for what happens to the Battle of the Belts with Dark and Dark Elevation. What are they going to use that time for now? How's development going to be treated going forward? Because the idea is that some way, somehow, whether it's streaming or on broadcast or on cable, AEW is going to go ahead and present, or Tony Khan's going to be presenting Dynamite, Ring of Honor, Rampage, and Collision. And I'm guessing All Access continues after this. Plus, you see some of the stars for AEW positioned on other programming. I mean, MJF was on Impractical Jokers, right? I mean, there's some other things going to be used to keep intertwining, which is good. Warner Bros. Discovery and the Turner crew, they're going to have to be considering about NBA coming up. That's for 2025, a new broadcast deal for that. This is one of the smaller deals. Now, the other thing is, with this and the possibility that they're going to have more programming to go ahead and develop, does that mean that's what's going to go and kick in more of a deal for AEW to make more money on the broadcasting? That's the other part they're going to get, and they're going to find out about soon enough. One thing I've noticed as well, that you don't see a whole lot of the sponsorships coming in through like before, where State Farm was so prominent beforehand. I mean, DraftKings is obviously there. There's other things that are out there, but not so. They're not as advertiser heavy as they once were with sponsorships left and right. Not necessarily. It's something that stands out to me. So with that all said and done, the other thing that really is very important for AEW is the success of All In London. Because that pre-sale really did something special. So far we heard 35,000 tickets initially on their first day of ticket sales. But then we also read it was actually 43,000. So let me get what's been said over at WrestlingNews.co. Tony Khan announced that over 43,000 tickets have been sold for AEW All In London during their pre-sale yesterday. Gate revenue for the show so far, $5.7 million American, or 4.5 million pounds. Incredible. Big moves going on. And that's great. Everything being done so far is really solid. The news for them couldn't be better. Now, the other thing I can bring up as well before we wrap things up, but this is just rumor and speculation. There's a report that came out that Conor McGregor is hinting at a SummerSlam match with Roman Reigns. That would be great if they do that. So McGregor tweeted, SummerSlam while pulling on the yacht, Roman and Paul out the bus. And Paul Heyman spoke on the Ariel Helwani show last month. And let me see if there's anything that was said about this. So there was a Twitter exchange last month after the UFC WWE Endeavor deal was announced. Heyman called McGregor a Roman Reigns wannabe. McGregor fired back saying he could break Heyman's jaw in 3 places. And Heyman said this about Conor McGregor's threat. I'm not a grandfather, but I appreciate the fact I'm old enough to be one. Number one, and still thriving on top. I would like to see if Conor McGregor at 57 is still thriving at the top of his entire industry. And he moves along, he says, it's not that he tweeted to me. I picked a fight with him. Let's be honest about this. He, as a Roman Reigns wannabe, did the Paul Heyman style, title on each shoulder, and, gave a shout out to himself. Of course he did. The ultimate self-promoter in Conor McGregor, standing 9 feet tall, weighing 155 pounds and 5'4". So with that in mind, I said, look at Conor McGregor, a Roman Reigns wannabe. Of course, oh, be careful, Grandpa. I'll break your jaw in 3 places. My father was a pretty street-savvy guy from the Bronx. My father used to say, if you're going to hit somebody, you don't want to go up and go, I'm going to punch you in the face. I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to come get you. You know what they do if they want to beat you up? They walk up to you and they hit you. So we'll find out what goes on. But if Conor McGregor comes on, that will be quite interesting. And it'll get a lot of mainstream press. I mean, he did a pretty good job with Conor McGregor with Logan Paul. Or was it Jake Paul? I forget which one. But it was interesting. What can I say? Just as interesting as Floyd Mayweather when he took on Big Show, remember? Not too long ago. Been over a decade ago. Anyways. That's the program for tonight. Thank you for listening in, finding the show as you always do. I appreciate all of you for checking out the show and regularly listen to this program. WrestlingIsReal.com. Always here for you. And I will be doing a post show for Backlash coming up in Puerto Rico this weekend. So let's quickly go through the matches. Here's what I got so far. So, the Bloodline versus Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Matt Riddle. I'll take Owens, Zayn, and Riddle to win. I think Cody Rhodes will beat Brock Lesnar. Rhea Ripley will make pretty easy work of Zelina Vega for the SmackDown Women's title. I'm going to say, let's see. I'm going to say Austin Theory retains because Bobby Lashley and Bronson Reed will cancel each other out. So Austin Theory retains U.S. title. Seth Rollins will beat Omos. He better. Come on. I don't even know how they're going to do with this match, but any which way. Bianca Belair versus Io Sky. This should be also a pretty quick fix for Bianca Belair. Maybe they'll set something up where Bianca will confront Charlotte, who will take her on for the SmackDown side once she moves over, and they'll set things up for that. I don't know what else they do. San Juan Street Fight, Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest. I will take Bad Bunny for the win on that. That's where I think all that goes. So we'll leave it there. That's the show for tonight. Thanks for listening in and catching the show as you always do. I appreciate all of you. WrestlingIsReal.com is the website. And by the way, of course, if you listen to the program, you can always go and find all the episodes. WrestlingIsReal.com, wherever you find podcasts, which is Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, and all major podcast portals. And remember, you can find me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, at King of Podcasts. And this has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network. Come back this Saturday night after the post show. For the post show of Backlash, I'll be doing one this Saturday night. And until then, enjoy Backlash. Come back for another Wrestling Is Real podcast because wrestling needs us.